Now let's go check out our guitars. So let's just hear that with none of the guitar and stuff done. Let's hear what we have so far in the mix. We're getting there. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's look at the Git fiddles. We had good sounding guitars already. Nesto's a pretty even player, so we don't have any hard spikes. Not going to do any compression on these guys. However, we are going to do some EQ, and you can see these scoops look pretty big. In solo, I much prefer no EQ on it. It's round, it's warm. However, when we get it in the track, I'm getting rid of this down here because there's not a lot coming out on a guitar amp there anyway. I don't always scoop that bottom. But in this case, I was just trying to make as much room for the bass and the guitar as possible. And I'm taking some of this out because there's a lot of bass there and I wanted to sit there. And this little boost here is going to help the guitars cut through everything else. So let me just mute the melodies. And the other thing that we were going for in this track is something that was a little, we didn't want it to be too vintage sounding or you know, old school rock with the guitar. So we wanted them a little more bright. We were going for this on purpose, because one thing you could do when you don't have boosts like this right here, like this big guy here, I could turn. I could actually turn my guitars up a little bit without that boost. But like I said, we were purposely going for something that was a little more modern sounding. Not too harsh, because that drives me crazy. But we wanted it to bite, I guess is the perfect word. I wanted the guitars, and Ernesto, we wanted them to kind of bite a little bit more. That's why I'm adding this in there. But I could easily go either way on this. If I wanted it to be a little more old school rock sounding, I'd just take that off. I'd leave the guitars where they were. Maybe scoop that bottom off. And then I just pull them up and go with it. That could easily work too. So we could change the entire vibe of this track. But it wouldn't fit what I have going with the drums. It wouldn't fit what I have going with the bass. So there is, now we have basically our bed down. Now the guitar melody. I didn't want this to have any body really whatsoever, so I'm thinning it out a lot. Little compression. I kind of like the extra bite that it adds there. Not doing a ton. Medium release and a slow, or sorry, medium attack, slow release. Where the fun starts is I played around with this, because this on its own could totally work. On its own, that could really work, but I wanted to have a little bit more fun with it than that. So the first thing I did is, because I wanted to give it a little space, right here, we're going to bus 16, which is this cat, which is a little bit of delay. Hear that? 79 to one side, 100 to the other. And this changes for me a little bit depending on how I want the space to sit. This is barely a slapback. But hear how, listen closely, hear how it thickens things up a little bit? Off. It also spreads it just a hair. And then I play around with the low cut and the high cut till I get what I like for the particular track. I don't really have any rules there. Most likely, sometimes I'll really take the high cut down to, 2K or 3K. It all depends on what I'm trying to do. In this case, I wanted to thicken all that mid and that high up. Next, bus 19, which is, where are you at? Right here. We've got a little bit of a space designer going here. Soft plate. You can hear that. Here, let me pull that. Where are you? Let's just hear that. I'm just trying to make it feel like it has some room around it. It's pretty subtle, but now let's get to the fun one. Bus 17, right here. Me Octafuzz. I wanted to give this thing a little bit of life. So, pedal board. Stand with my Logic stuff. Got a phaser and a rock distortion on this. And, oh, come on, stay open. There we go. I am pitching this down an entire octave. So let's listen to that. What's going... Oh, let me send it there first off. There we go. Nice and gnarly. And I'm going to blend that in now with our melody. So let's hear just without it. So we got some attitude here. Now you also notice that all this EQing that I did here to take this bottom out, that occurred after I started adding this effect. I was going for a sound and it just was sending way too much bottom there, which is one reason why I went and I scooped some of this mid-range and some of this bottom out of there. So when I added this other sound, we're getting a lot of that back. So now let's hear. Here, I'll turn everybody off, and then I'll turn it on while we're going. Some attitude. It's full again, but it's also got a bite, and the phaser, it's just cool what it's doing. Here, this Octafuzz, just so... So just straight, little phaser, and a ton of distortion. It's kind of like a distorted organ, really. And that's what's happening with the melody. Now the guitar bus, one thing that here with the electrics, and this I kind of leave till when everything's going, is I do have, see, bus 8 is a space designer. I've got just a bit of a room kind of plate happening. Actually, I don't think that's a plate on this. Let me look. Nope, I'm actually using a room sound, and I'm just using a stock one in this case. I found one that worked, that I liked. And this, See, it's not real long tail or real thick, but sometimes just a touch of a plate or some reverb. Most of the time, that's why I thought it was a plate, because most of the time I am using a plate. But just sometimes a little bit of that can make the guitar sound not small and too much into space, and sometimes can even just warm them up or thicken them up a little bit. So let's hear all of that so far. Sounded pretty good now. Last but not least, our guitar solo. Let's go find it, which happens back here. I'm going to pull this up. Now, I could, since this song doesn't have a vocal on it, the melody is our vocal, guitar melody is our vocal. I could have treated the guitar solo and the guitar melody the same, but I didn't want to. I wanted them to have, just because Ernesto's playing something different, considerably different, really. I also wanted it to have a little bit different feel for that. So the solo by itself. You can hear we have a lot more gain on the amp. We're driving it a little harder. But you can also hear there's some low end in it that I don't necessarily need. Now again, we're in solo, so of course we hear it. Will we hear that in context? Maybe not. But in this case, I chose to roll some of it off. It's pull on the bottom. It's not that different actually than what I was doing on, where is it? So you can see these EQs are, for the most part, actually they may be identical. So the EQing is really the same on the two parts, because we probably use the same overall setup for these two. But he's going to play a lot more notes, and he's going to have some faster stuff here. So I wanted to get rid of this bottom so there's clarity on his notes, man. I want to hear what he's playing. Matter of fact, let's just get to the second half of the solo where he does some of that. There we go. So he's playing pretty quick, which is where this EQ see, we're just going to get the attack of those notes big time. And that's all I'm really going for in the solo, because over the top of everything, I want that just to pop out, man, and be aggressive. I don't want to be scared. And we're going to go a little bit of compression here. Gonna have a little bit of, I want it to kind of move with what he's playing, so some of the stuff that jumps out too much kind of comes down with his lower notes a little bit even. The rest I could automate if I needed to. I didn't need to with him. Dude is one badass guitar player. All right, so here's what I did space-wise here. We have two things going on. Bus 12, right here next to it, is a stereo delay. Fairly short, but it's a little longer than what I had on the melody. So now it's slap back. So let's hear in context. I'll exaggerate so you can hear what it's doing. So if it get too much, it almost starts to act kind of like a reverb, really, but it doesn't have the tail of a reverb that can get kind of muddy. Next is, this is longer now. So this is going to spread things around a little bit. Hear that? So I'll turn the other one off. let's hear it without. With. So a lot of that gets eaten up in the track. I don't know if you guys have heard the soloed vocals from Hot for Teacher. If you can ever hear those, there is so much delay going on that vocal, but when it's in the track, you only hear it come out in certain spots. And that's kind of what's happening here too. Now let's see if we hear it more at the beginning. He's playing some stuff that's a little longer. Let's see what's going on here. So there you can kind of hear it building up a little bit and just supporting what's going on note-wise. And that's really all I'm trying to do with that. Is just kind of support him, give a little life, a little bit of bounce to it. So let's take a quick listen to, I'm going to go the B section going into that solo. Love the long delay. So you can see the melody and the solo, very different treatments. I didn't want them to sound the same whatsoever. I didn't want you to be able to mistake one for the other. So they are very, very, very different. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. Love all of you and happy music making.